Hi everyone, welcome to the first full episode of Be Heard's podcast. As you can see, I've been outside today a bit and the weather is kind of awful, so my hair's a mess. But I'm all about keeping it real, so we do as we will. So last time I explained kind of what Be Heard is and why it means so much to me and kind of introduced what I'm trying to do here. But I don't think I really explained neurodiversity and me particularly well, if at all. So, when I was a kid, and I know I'm only 21 now, neurodiversity wasn't really a term that was used. It's used more and more now, but it wasn't 10 years ago. And that's a sign that we are progressing as a society. But I was diagnosed dyslexic. And you'll understand why I got an autism diagnosis when I explain this, is that I was diagnosed dyslexic when I was 8, having gone to various schools and struggled so much. More now, I realise for the social things as I look back with the mental maturity that I have now. And I was looking and I got diagnosed with this thing and it was called dyslexia. And that's more or less what I was told. And it only makes English as in the school subject difficult. So in the UK, if you're watching this from other places, because I can see on Facebook that I have some people from around the world, we take subjects. So we take English, maths, and then anything else. But English, the language, is not really taught. It's like assessing your reading and how you comprehend a text and how you can analyse it and break it down. And I mastered how to answer the exam question, which I think is the main reason why I passed. But anyway, I've done more than pass. But that is what it was. And my reading speed was really slow. It's a lot faster now thanks to things like my tinted glasses and things. It and you learn coping strategies, but I only knew that it made this thing hard, but it wasn't an excuse not to try. I had to try. And something you'll learn about me is that my mum is a massive advocate for a growth mindset. And she'd be pecking my head. It's like, nope, you're going to sit and you're going to read. You don't want to, and you know you don't like it, but you're going to. So that's what I did. She used to hold me down to get me to read sometimes because I really didn't like it. And then as I got through school, I did really bad in English, but kind of could hold my own across most of the other subjects, except for foreign languages. I really struggled with that because I really struggled with English itself. And then adding another language on top of that, it was just too complicated for my brain. I was like, I can barely read and write in English. Like, I couldn't read and write, but not well. And then I was like, oh, let's just do it in another language. And at my school, you had to take 3 foreign languages at one point. You had to take Latin, French, and Spanish. And I used to get them all mixed up. Just when Latin exams came around, or French exams, or Spanish exams, I just used to freak. Especially when it came to spelling. Oh, spelling. No. No, 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 no. Just didn't work for my brain. Um, and it got to the point with my higher education where you choose in the UK when you're 14, 15, the subjects you want to take for GCSE. And you have to take maths, English language, and English literature. So the language is like comprehension and essay writing. And the other one is analysing and essay writing of texts like Shakespeare or poetry. And 2 novels, I think. It's a lot. And then I took double science, food technology, design technology, and business studies. And I managed to drop the foreign language for further support in English and maths and science, but I didn't need the science stuff because I could do quite well in that. So I mainly went for the English and maths support. And then I had this teacher. She's called Kat. She's lovely. She doesn't teach anymore, sadly, but she came to my house every Tuesday for 2 years and taught me how to answer a question. Actually understanding what the question was asking and what that meant in terms of an answer. And the exams that I took the next time round, after all this time, about nearly 10 years, of being told your dyslexia only affects English, all my grades across the board kind of just did that. There's like trajectory up out of nowhere. And I remember I came downstairs and I said to mum, I said, do this dyslexia thing. I said, does it just affect English, the school subject, or does it affect English written and reading communication across everything? She went, damn, I've lost it. I'd learnt the lesson by that point. But then it was like, oh my God. So, like, if I answer this question like this, I get the marks. That makes so much more sense now. And that is really what did it for me. I had to learn what the question was asking and how an examiner would want that answering. And then I basically learned how to answer the questions. I knew all the stuff. It was applying that into an answer, which was where my dyslexia wasn't helping, and it was really quite confusing. So that's me with dyslexia. And now I'm in higher education. I get a lot of extra support and things. But that is how I was kind of found to be dyslexic, struggling with reading. My short term memory is horrendous. There's a reason why I even planned this podcast by scribbling notes down, because my short term memory won't let me remember. It's like my mum laughs. She can tell me 3 things to do, and if I do the first one, great. Second one, okay. Third one probably ain't gonna happen. And it's not me being belligerent and rude. It's that I just don't remember. You have to write it down for me or send it to me, because otherwise, yeah, she just send me to a shop for 3 things. I'll come out with 2 of them, and it's actually quite amusing. But that's me with dyslexia, and right now I call it my superpower most of the time, because it enables me. And Richard Branson said it best: dyslexia is my superpower, because it enables me to decode things and structure things and think about and analyze all these academic theories and models, and like just break them into a million pieces and then put them back together in a different way. And lecturers will come out to me and go, that's not what the model is though. And I was like, no, but it's what the model should be. Or I can pull a model apart and go, this bit works, this bit doesn't, but as a whole it would work better if you got rid of that. And I can analyze and break things down really quite well, or simplify things to the point. So overall, you learn to cope with dyslexia. I think the earlier you're diagnosed, the better, because you can teach yourself things, and schools are more supportive now and more aware now. Even since I was in school, things have come on a hell of a long way. But that's one thing to be mindful of, that there are options out there. And dyslexia, if you're a slow reader and your short-term memory is not very good, and you get like rivers of light running through work and things, it might be something to take a look at. I'll leave in the comments section of this YouTube video a few links to my blog that might be helpful as well. So then we get to 18. I've left education, I've been in employment, got a different job, needed surgery, had a car accident, and I decided that I didn't want to do the career that I always thought I wanted, for a variety of reasons that I'm not quite ready to talk about yet. And I went back to education to do something called an Access to Higher Education diploma. And at the time I did it in biosciences, because at the time that's the sort of thing I wanted to go into, but things change. I went in and spoke to the people that were taking that course the other year, and it's like, yeah, the degree title that you start the year with won't be the one you end it with, because you change it. And the first 2 academic weeks of the year, I did not handle them at all. And I'd call them explosions. I'd just absolutely lose it. Now I identify that it was an autistic meltdown. It is what it is. And I'd come home and I'd had a fight with my mum, brackets meltdown, that then led to a fight. Not like a physical fight, like a verbal argument. And then it was like, I think you're autistic. And I said, prove it, because a stubborn person that I am. So we went down you need mental health support, but we need to know what's actually the full scope of what's going on. It's like, we think you're autistic. And it's like, right, okay, well, I don't need looking up. I'm fine. I wasn't fine, but I can wash myself and I can do things and I can hold conversations most of the time. It's like, no, you can still be autistic. So I went off and I went on train and I went to Bristol, because that was where I could get one, and I live in North Wales. In Bristol, it was like 5 hours on the train. I had like a dog that I'd trained to help me with things, but I hadn't used him for public access that much yet. So he didn't come with me. I went on my own. And I sat in front of the psychiatrist and she was asking me all these questions. I think, oh, I'm doing really well at this. Yeah, I got an autism diagnosis, and then I spent like 2 months in denial, like, no, I'm not autistic, I can do this and I can do that. And then my mum's like, yeah, but really? Like, really? Like, You know you're either too loud or too quiet, or you don't make eye contact, or you don't make eye contact with people until you know them very well, or you. And then I was like, maybe it's true. And that was in like the October kind of time. And just before Christmas, I decided I was ready to talk. And I was like, I've got some trauma stuff that I need to deal with. I need to go to therapy. I was on antidepressants and I still am. But I needed to actually process what had happened to me, from a car accident to some other things, just to, and in a way, I had to grieve myself. I felt like I had to grieve this identity, like I'm fine. And at the end of the day, I wasn't. I'm autistic, and it took me a while to like own that label. So I went to therapy from about December that year till about March, April, maybe even the beginning of June, actually. June. I was in therapy for quite a while. In fact, I'm looking at going back to therapy to do some more work on myself. Thoroughly recommend it. It may be hard and it may be painful and it may be expensive, but the skills and perspectives you can get from therapy about yourself and the situations you are in are really powerful. So I went to therapy and learned a few things. Learned that, but did you know, like, this is me utterly shocked, that you can feel more than one emotion at once? And do you know people feel emotions mentally? So, like, for a long time, I thought this was normal. I didn't really feel emotions, I just felt physical sensations. So, I could say, I'm angry because my fists are tight, I'm angry because my legs hurt, because I tighten different muscles, or I'm happy because my jaw doesn't ache, or I'm anxious because I've got this pounding in my chest and my fingers, and I could never tell that each one was separate. And I had to do a lot of work on identifying emotions and psychological manifestation and physical, and when I feel more than one. And then I realized I was feeling so many emotions that I didn't actually know what was what anymore. And you do the work, and you kind of, there's a Julie Smith video, I think it's Julie Smith video on on TikTok, um, about going to therapy, and you've basically got this bin and it's full of papers that are overloaded. It's scrunched up in a mess, overloaded. And in therapy, you basically take each one out, straighten it, process it, and fold it back, and do that with each one. And then this overloaded bin comes into a pile like this big. And that is really what it feels like to go to therapy. Um, and I learned a lot. And I wasn't quite owning my diagnosis yet. I was aware that it made me who I was, but I wasn't quite sure where the line of me and autism ended. And now I realised autism is me. There isn't a line. There isn't a bit of me that's autistic and a bit of me that's not. I am, but I'm still a person. So I'm a person who is autistic, who happens to be just a little bit neurospicy. Because why not? And then I went into higher education. So this was the big, we're in the middle of the first COVID lockdown. And then I went into university my first year, that September of 2020. And it was difficult, but I really like working from home. This is my little den, this is my office, and it's all lovely. And it's my little sanctuary. It's a place that's designed for me to be calm in, basically. And I manage quite well. I have a mentor, I have a dyslexia support worker, I type everything, my handwriting's appalling, and I learn quite well on my own. I cope really quite well in this kind of structure. You give me a structure and I'll run with it. And throughout my first year, I did okay. I managed quite well. And then the summer happened. And I don't like breaks, I don't like change. So it was like routine, no. I broke my foot. I ended up in hospital, and then I came back to a new academic year. And that was really hard for me because I really struggle with the changes in routine, which is another thing that I didn't realise was my autism. And I went back to my second year and I worked remotely most of the time because I was pretty careful with COVID due to my lungs. And I went in, I think, about 8 times. And my university is really near my house, it's like 10 miles away. So I was working on my degree, coping really well. And then the end of the summer came again, and I decided that I wasn't going to let myself have the quiet time. Sorry, I had to disappear for a second. Um, And I decided I wasn't going to let that change happen. So I decided to keep myself really busy over the summer. So I did an internship with the university on equality and diversity, which is a big part of my passion. I'm all for equality, diversity, and inclusion. It's my passion. I just don't think anyone should be treated differently because they have a different gender or disability or neurodivergent or anything. I just don't agree with it. So I will do anything to make anything as equally accessible as possible. And then I met this lovely lady who's a mentor of mine, and she said, "Well, why don't you start a business then?" And I was like, "Me? No, I've not finished my degree yet. Albeit my degree is in business." And I was like, she's like, "Right, by next week, have a logo, name, and a concept." I'm like, "Okay." And this is how Be Heard was born. Be Heard, my brain baby, I call it. It's, yeah, it is. So I created Be Heard in the summer of 2022, um, with the entire aim of raising the profile of neurodiverse conditions and the fact you can be neurodiverse and be a perfectly functional member of society, because that's a big misconception. And I raise awareness and I educate and I help people understand that this person isn't probably doing what you is annoying you because they want to annoy you. That's just not how it works. They could be, but there's a chance that they're not. So I work with the university on training their nurses on neurodivergence, because healthcare as a neurodivergent brackets autistic person scares the living daylights out of me for good reason. So I train and try and not to be angry about what hurts me to help the next person. So I go in and I train them and I talk to them and have very real conversations about autism and neurodivergence and how to treat people. Just because we have a diagnosis doesn't mean we're not human. So I do quite a lot of work in that respect, but I also work on a more individual basis with people and I help them understand exam questions and understand how their brain works from revision and make them realise they can be them. Yes, masking is a key skill. I will die on that hill. Masking is okay, but it's you need to learn when to turn it on and turn it off. And I teach people coping skills and things that I've had to learn throughout my time in education and through my life and through therapy and through things that I know have helped, and put them in front of them in the simplest way possible. So yeah, I have this company and it's called Be Heard and I help people and that's amazing to me. So that's kind of like a well thing about my journey. Um, I am a strong believer that if you put your mind to it, you can achieve anything you want to. So yeah, I hope you guys have a good week. Um, the next podcast episode should be out in about 2 weeks or so. So yeah, my name's Rebecca. I'm neurodivergent and I'm very proud of that. And I'll speak to you guys soon. Bye.